Private member's business, affaires émanant des députés, Bill C-355, Prohibition of the Export of Horses by Air for Slaughter Act, standing in the name of Mr. Lewis, first time debated at report stage.
Le motionnaire a indiqué à la présidence ne pas vouloir donner suite.
The sponsor has stated that he does not wish to follow up on the debate on the motion, and therefore we will move directly to report stage.
Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would request that we adopted our report stage on division, please.
I'm going to read the motion first, if I may. Mr. Lewis Kitchener-Conestoga, seconded by Ms. Taylor-Roy, moves that Bill C-355, an act to prohibit the export by air of horses for slaughter and to make related amendments to certain acts as amended, be concurred in at report stage. If a member participating in person, the Honourable Member for Kingston and the Islands.
I would request that it be concurred in on division, Madam Speaker.
Agreed? Carried.
All right, let's do that.
Okay. Mr. Lewis Kitchener-Conestoga, seconded by Ms. Taylor-Roy, moves that Bill C-355, an act to prohibit the export by air of horses for slaughter and to make related amendments to certain acts, be now read a third time and do pass. Debate. The Honourable Member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
I got this. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I proudly stand before you to discuss my private member's bill, C-355. This legislation seeks to prohibit the export of live horses for slaughter by air. And I firmly believe that it is our duty to protect these magnificent creatures from unnecessary suffering. Our relationship with horses runs deep in Canada. Throughout history, and with the Mennonite community in my riding of Kitchener-Conestoga to this very day, we've relied on horses for transportation and for labor. From the iconic imagery of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to the draft horse pull at our New Hamburg Fall Fair every year in my community, horses have been our steadfast companion. They symbolize strength, grace, and resilience, a testament to the significance in our culture. But let us be clear. Bill C-355 is not driven by emotions alone. This bill is grounded in science and in facts. We've consulted experts, examined the conditions faced by horses during transportation. We've heard from veterinarians and other expert witnesses. The evidence supports the need for this legislation. And our duties as lawmakers is to make informed decisions based on empirical evidence, and that is what we are doing. Some argue that existing provisions in the Criminal Code already address this issue. It's true that the Health of Animals Act provides for the protection of animal health, but those provisions do not specifically target the practice of the export of live horses for slaughter by air. Bill C-355 addresses this gap. It recognizes that horses endure unique risks during air transportation, confined spaces, stress, and harsh conditions. By banning this practice, we send a clear message, a message that Canadians are asking for. Put an end to the export of live horses from Canada by air to other countries to be slaughtered for raw consumption as a delicacy. I'll explain the reality for horses exported by air for slaughter. They endure stress, dehydration, and exhaustion. It's our responsibility to protect them from such cruelty. And here are some of the risks associated with the conditions these horses endure. Draft horses bred for export often endure life in open feedlots without shelter or protection from the elements, in some of Canada's harshest weather conditions. During transportation, horses experience intense audio distress due to their acute hearing. Confined in crates, they endure the roar of engine aircraft, which can subject them to deafening sounds exceeding 140 decibels. They're subject to injury and discomfort. Horses' high center of gravity makes them vulnerable during the plane's ascent and descent. With multiple horses crammed in each crate, they risk injury because of balance loss. There's a lack of oversight and transparency once the plane's doors are closed and it takes off, to be flown halfway across the world. At that point, there's no oversight or accountability. There are those who claim that these horses are sent for slaughter by air are treated similarly to those flown for recreation, sport, or competitions. But let us dispel any misconceptions. Contrary to the conditions I mentioned about live horses exported for slaughter by air, horses for sporting events and recreation are trained and habituated to travel. Race horses and equestrian event horses are given access to food and water, and also given more space to move and correct their balance during takeoff and landing. They're also not confined with other unfamiliar animals, and they're attended to and transported with supervision. In short, there's no comparison. We addressed concerns about this legislation and its effect on horse breeders. The bill focuses on banning export only. Breeding, raising, and selling of horses in Canada is untouched by this legislation. I'll say that again. The breeding, raising, and selling of horses in Canada is untouched by this legislation. Bill C-355 allows breeders to continue raising and selling horses within Canada, but this bill will ensure that these horses are not subjected to the horrors of long-distance air travel for slaughter. It's the export that is being banned. This bill proposes an 18-month period for coming into force. It allows industry stakeholders time to adjust, while at the same time signaling our resolve. This time frame strikes a balance between practical considerations and the commitment to ending this practice as soon as possible. It will give time to prepare and adjust while moving forward quickly and responsibly, as Canadians want us to do. Madam Speaker, 7 out of 10 Canadians want an end to live horse exports for slaughter by air. Once people hear about this practice, they don't want Canada to be any part of it. By passing this bill, we align ourselves with their voices and demonstrate our commitment to the humane treatment of horses. When I mention to people that I've been working on this legislation protecting horses, they often share amazing personal stories and fond memories related to these companion animals. I spoke with a woman actually only last week, and she shared with me her favorite picture of her father. There's an old black and white photo of him as a young man standing with his horse. She said you can see the pride of ownership in her dad's eyes. It's one of her favorite pictures. With that unique relationship that we have with horses, we need to remind ourselves of the responsibility that comes with it. So I want to thank the many stakeholders who took their time to meet and discuss and give their opinions. I want to thank my committee colleagues for their thoroughness. And I want to thank the law clerks and all those who helped shape this bill. And I want to thank our team and staff in Kitchener-Conestoga for being there every step of the way. I also want to thank the Canadians who wrote, emailed, called, signed petitions, including one sponsored by the member from Cowichan, Malahat, Langford, who's been a champion of this cause. I apologize for not saying the full name right. Cowichan, Malahat, Langford. I even practiced that. And in closing, let us recognize that by passing Bill 355, we affirm our commitment to compassion and to the well-being of our horse companions. Let us stand united in our resolve to end this practice of live horse exports for slaughter by air. Our legacy will be one of empathy, progress, and justice, a legacy worthy of Canadians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.